with our top story, and I'm joined now by Hassan Ben Imran, who's in Galway, Ireland. He's a legal advisor for the Palestine Organisation and a researcher at the Irish Centre for Human Rights. Some quite remarkable pictures once again today that we're seeing. I wonder if I could just first of all get your thoughts on seeing the conditions of those Palestinian prisoners who were released and what that might tell us about the conditions that they've been in, some of them for decades.
It's quite horrific to start with. Like, definitely there is no doubt that seeing many of these Palestinian hostages, actually, many of them had nothing to do with the hostilities. Many of them were not even political prisoners. They were minding their own business. They were being brought as hostages into Israeli jails to pressure their families or to pressure others that might be related to them. So seeing the images of these people finally tasting back their freedom, or some of its freedom after all they're still living under occupation, is something that any human would be happy to see. However, it's a bittersweet feeling. There are clear signs of these people being released from torture, not just from being held hostages or being prisoners of war in some cases. Some of them have lost more than half their weight. Some of them lost 20 kg, 30 kg, 40 kg. In some cases, some of them lost 50 kg, which is quite disturbing to see when you look at the pictures before they were put in jail and after they have been released. Some of them are not people who have been in jail for decades or for a long time. Some of them, they were just being brought to jail literally a few months ago. And now you see them coming in that form. There is a famous video for Khalida Jarrar being released from jail. I honestly did not recognize her. I know Khalida very well. I know how she speaks on TV. I know how she looks on TV. Like, she was unrecognizable, and that applies to almost everyone. Israel seems to be pressuring these prisoners and threatening them not to provide their testimonies to groups like ourselves, to document the torture that they have been through, so we don't supply it to the ICC, to the International Criminal Court, or to any other relevant courts. In a very clear, so Israel is quite aware that it is practicing torture, and it's very quite aware of the consequences of the torture that it's practicing it. But instead of seizing this act, they're basically trying to pressure these prisoners not to talk with us or with any group that collects their testimonies, to provide it for any legal investigation under their conditions. In short, we see a very clear live broadcasted scenes of people coming out from torture.
Investigations and tribunals, as you say, that are going on in some of the highest courts of law in the world. Separately, I wanted to ask you about another thing that we've seen today, the reopening of the Rafa crossing, which is, of course, allowing for some really quite sick patients to access medical care outside of Gaza. How significant is that for you and from a human rights standpoint?
It's literally the same feeling that you would see when you put some innocent people inside a cage, and then you would allow some of them under so many restrictions, under so much humiliation as well, that happens throughout the process. You see them trying to get out of that cage. The opening of the Rafa crossing border has been an international legal obligation on everybody involved, mainly on the Israeli authorities, to open, not just now, not just during the war, way before the war. Palestinians were being deliberately humiliated and blackmailed through the Rafa crossing. During the war, it was completely blocked, which in itself is, in my opinion, and the opinion of many legal researchers working on this, is an evidence of genocidal intent. Because what does it mean to lock people inside a cage, carpet bomb them, destroy their houses, prevent the access of medical aid and humanitarian aid, the access of food, and then at the end of the war, you just very shyly allow some of them to exit under so much restrictions, and unfortunately they're being taken advantage of on the other side of the border as well. We have heard of many cases of people having to pay higher amounts of money to be transported to a better place so they can be medicated. It's an international legal obligation to open the Rafah crossing. It should not have been a card on the table. It should not have been a part of the game, the negotiating game, in the first place. The Rafah crossing is one of the least obligations that Israel was obliged with, or had under international law, to open the Rafah crossing for aid, to open it for access, for movement, free movement of people, especially those who have been injured, especially those who have been living a genocide for 15 months or more.
Hassan Ben Imran from Galway in Ireland today. Thank you so much. It's important to reflect that amid these scenes of joy and jubilation, that there are some very concerning indicators as well, and a long way to go before this is all sorted out. Thank you so much for joining us on TRT World.